Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Chamber of Commerce Economic Summit, or what I would like to refer to as the year from hell. My name is David John. I will be your moderator this morning. If you have not attended one of these past summits, I think you'll be glad you logged in this morning. 2020 has truly been a remarkable year, with civil unrest in CONUS not seen since the 1970s, an unprecedented presidential election, and of course, the event of the year, the COVID-19 pandemic. This will truly be a year to remember. While there have been some positive developments of late, the greatest of which is the encouraging news about 3 COVID-19 vaccines that were shown to be highly effective through trial, the vaccines likely will not be available to the general public until the first quarter of 2021 at the earliest. With this, I believe we'll be in for a rough ride for at least another quarter, and more likely 2, before tourists begin to arrive on island, as it will take that long for vaccines to be sufficiently distributed to achieve stabilization and for the population to feel comfortable traveling abroad. The good news is that once travel is thought to be safe, I believe Guam should recover quickly with a 75 to 90% recovery by the end of 2021. I base this prediction on pent-up consumer demand of families just saying we need to get away, and a significant number of households, the ones who maintained jobs throughout the pandemic, that, believe it or not, are sitting on a pile of cash, as they have had no income and nowhere. They've had income coming in throughout the pandemic and nowhere to spend it. This being said, Guam cannot take a rebound in tourism numbers for granted. Visitors are not coming unless we demonstrate that we are a safe place to visit. This will require us to get our positivity and hospital rates under control. One thing I've learned over my 30 years in Guam is that we are some of the most resilient people on earth. We will get through this. We just need to stay together and support each other the best we can. Guam will be back. Viva Guam. Our speakers this morning are Gerry, Hiles, Chief Economist, Guam Department of Labor, who will speak on the state of Guam's economy. James Martinez, President of the Guam Contractors Association, who will provide a construction and labor update. Sonny, Chairman, and Gerry Perez, Vice President of the Guam Visitors Bureau, who will provide a visitor industry updates. Siska, Hutapea, President of Cornerstone Valuation Guam, who will provide an overview on real property and inward investment. And at that point in the presentation, we will take 10 minutes to introduce you to an exciting new joint government-private sector initiative on economic diversification. The initiative, spearheaded by your chamber and the Guam Economic Development Authority, with the support from members of the Women's Chamber of Commerce, the executive branch, the legislature, and multiple government agencies, was birthed with the idea that while tourism and federal spending has done well to provide jobs and business opportunities for the island for decades, we can do more with our location as a United States territory in the Asia-Pacific region. This initiative is a continuation of one of the bright spots to come out of this truly trying year, and that is a much stronger relationship between our government and the private sector, who have worked hand in hand throughout the pandemic to establish safe protocols to reopen our economy and develop multiple small business grants and initiatives. Each speaker will have 10 minutes to present their information this morning. As they are presenting, if you have any questions, please submit them in the question portion of the webcam. I will pull them together and ask as many questions as I'm allowed before the discussion ends this morning. This portion of the presentation is often the most informative part of the summit, so please stay with us to the end. For the questions I do not get to, I will request the speakers to submit a written response, and we will try to have it on the chamber website by the end of the day. With this, let's get started with our first speaker this morning, Gerry Hiles. Thank you.
Morning, I'm Gerry Hiles. I'll be going through my presentation showing you some of the characteristics of Guam's economy and the impact of the pandemic on the economy this year. Next slide. Okay, this table is from the 2017 Economic Census of Guam. It provides comprehensive information for all businesses on Guam. The information shown on the screen is just a summary of the major divisions. In divisions, includes some of the employees and establishments and the receipts from them. Much more detail on the website in terms of types of construction or manufacturing and retail trade. But for the presentation, this is just summarized. There's two reasons I'm presenting this. One, to show the data available on the website if you want detailed information by the industry. So I use this to help forecast how many people would be impacted by a virtual visitor industry shutdown by looking at the different industries we have. And in the state,
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand by.
you could go back for a second on the prior slide. The total estimated employment loss just due to our tourism shutdown that people wouldn't be working was estimated to be about 13,800 jobs. Also, the shutdown of other businesses I estimated to be cause approximately 20,000 people to be not going to office work. But it isn't clear that if they were employed and being outside or if it's still the payroll, this is what should not be that they are employed. I put in color at the top the annual payroll for all of the private sector and public sector businesses such as utility on a basis. So about 1.6 billion for the annual payroll, about 400 million for the quarterly payroll, and about 8.5 billion for annual sales. Of the federal revenue will be common. So if we go to the on the next screen, we can see the increase in federal expenditures on Guam. They've been increasing a little bit every year since 2016, 17, 18. And in 2019, for the calendar year or the fiscal year, $1.9 billion was obligated on Guam. In fiscal year 2020, $2.6 billion. So 0.7 or $700 million extra was obligated in 2020. So that, in the context of the size of the economy, it represents more nearly 10% of the total revenue of all business establishments on Guam. So this is a cause for a significant offset due to the downturn in the tourism industry. Okay, there is a little footnote at the bottom, the amounts obligated. Usually when federal funds are appropriated, they're for the most part spent. However, with obligations for construction, the expenditures can occur the following year or even years later. So the expenditures will not necessarily occur in the calendar year in which they're obligated. Okay, next slide. This shows the breakdown of the type of transactions: 1.2 billion for grants, contracts, 0.9 billion, direct payments about $500 million, loans 11 million, and other financial assistance. Next screen. Okay, so we've put together a table on employment from our current employment survey that we conduct of employers on Guam. And you can see the employment in 2019 by industry division, and March, June, and September. And you can see the change in employment. These are preliminary numbers because not all of the employers have reported yet, but it gives you a good idea what's happening. Some of the industries are remarkably stable. In fact, it's interesting, construction has gone up over the year. We have more H2 workers and more people employed as there's a backlog of construction on Guam. I'll go into that more in a future slide. But all of the industries related to tourism, transportation, retail trade, and finance and services, particularly hotels. This line is hotels, and other services have declined. So we've recorded nearly 6,000 jobs lost in the economy to date. As we get more information, that number might be larger. Next slide. But the impact to the economy of the downturn due to coronavirus and combination of shutdown and the tourism decline is also shown in the reduction in the hours. Many of the industries haven't changed very much, but it's noteworthy that the hotels and lodging places have the number of hours worked have gone down dramatically from an average of 36.5 in December 2019 to 15.1. So the employment in the industry has declined substantially. Almost the majority of it's gone for the time being, but also those that are still employed are working with vastly reduced work hours. The overall impact in the private sector is less significant, 5.3 hours, which is pretty significant. That's almost 15% reduction in total hours worked. So overall, that's a big impact on the economy and people's revenue, as well as in addition to the reduction in jobs. The one thing that's kept the employment as high as it is two things really: the payroll protection, that employers are keeping people on staff even if they don't have enough business to support it, and the other programs, primarily the unemployment insurance program, which provides people that are reduced income or lost income with the funds to expend money and keep the demand in other sectors strong. Next slide. Next, we'll look at unemployment to give you a perspective on our closest state, which has a somewhat similar economy based on military expenditures and tourism. The unemployment rate in Hawaii for the comparable period that we've just released is the unemployment in June 2020 was 11.2% for the United States as a whole and 13.9% for Hawaii. You can see after March, unemployment in the US and Hawaii spiked considerably. If we go to the next slide, we can see what's happened with unemployment for Guam. A similar trend, unemployment was varying slightly, but when we hit June, it spiked. It went from 3.6% in the third quarter of 2019, went up a little bit in December, but in June of this year, it went to 17.3%. This is the highest unemployment ever recorded on Guam since the Guam Bureau of Labor Statistics began collecting unemployment statistics in the mid-70s. However, the impact to the unemployed persons has been mitigated very substantially by the unemployment assistance programs, including PUA. Okay, next slide. Despite the unemployment being above 17%, the comment I got from several people were, how can these numbers be so low? Because there's so many people out of work. And the reason is, well, first of all, note that the unemployment numbers on Guam are comparable, but somewhat higher than Hawaii. Is that unemployment rates are below the PUA numbers because unemployment rates refer to a specific reference week and they're not cumulative. So the unemployment rate for June just reflects how many people were out of work in June. There's more people that have been affected by the pandemic, but some people are working for a period of weeks, then they get laid off and then they go back to work, or some people find jobs and they go back to work and other people are laid off. So not all of the people that have been reported as have had experienced unemployment were necessarily unemployed during that particular week. Second, unemployment rates do not include those with reduced hours, such as those in the hotels whose hours have been reduced dramatically. Whereas people are eligible for the PUA unemployment assistance programs if their hours have been reduced. So in the reference period of that Guam's unemployment survey, about 43.8% of those that were collecting PUA were receiving some income, although it was reduced enough to still be eligible for PUA. So there's more people that are unemployed are counted as eligible for the unemployment, but they're not technically unemployed because they still have some attachment and income from their employer. So unemployment rates also do not include those who are no longer employed but not looking for work. So if people lost their job and they haven't looked due to the pandemic, they would not be counted. This applies to some people that have to stay home to take care of their children, or they don't want to go out and look for a job in the pandemic due to health concerns or the fact that it would be very difficult to get a job. So that's one thing that also depresses the already record high unemployment from what it otherwise would be. And also those that are receiving unemployment under the PUA insurance under the PUA program, the work search requirements have been waived. And so if in order to be counted as unemployed, you must have made a work search within the last 4 weeks. Okay, next week or next screen. Okay, when we did the June survey, we did a supplemental unemployment survey. And here's the question results from the sample survey that we did of unemployment. We modeled the questions after what the U.S. Department of Commerce did when they conducted their survey for the Labor Department for unemployment in June. So we asked of all persons age 16 or over in the survey, at any time during the last 4 weeks, did you work telework or work at home for pay because of the coronavirus pandemic? 13.3% said yes, 86.7% said no. So there's significant work at home, but most people aren't working at home. And this includes government as well. Asked of all persons age 16 or over at any time during the last 4 weeks, were you unable to work because your employer closed or lost business due to the pandemic? 32%, 37.2% said yes, 62.8% said no. So these people were affected by the business closure or shutdown. The employees were some completely or partially closed businesses continued to be employed during the week of June 12th, the survey reference week. Some of them, even though the business was closed, continued to receive pay while not working. So they're not considered unemployed. They may be getting vacation leave or the employer's paying them from the payroll protection funds. So even though they're not at work, they are not unemployed as they're receiving income from the employer and they have a relationship with their employer. Even though people have lost work, some of them continue to receive fringe benefits from their employer. When asked, did you receive any pay for your employer for the hours you did not work in the last 4 weeks? 15.4% said yes. So some of them are still getting paid even if they weren't working, but not most. Did you continue to receive employer paid benefits such as medical insurance that were previously provided for hours you did not work? 24.7% said yes. So about a quarter of the people that were no longer working were retained their benefits such as medical insurance, but most of them, 75%, did not. So in addition to an unemployment problem, we also have a problem with people losing their medical benefits and other benefits from their employment. Next screen. Next screen. Okay, here's Don Quixote store is broken ground. That's under construction in Tuman. Next screen. This is the building permits. Local permits have remained stable over the last 3 years. Next screen. Department of Defense construction projects have been volatile. Next screen. Down in 2020, but they're down in 2020, but still at a high level. And there's a backlog of projects, so I expect construction to continue to increase. Next screen. Here's the number of H2 workers. In March 2019, we had 859. October this year, we had 1588. Next screen. If you want more statistics on our website, we have a number of statistics are available from a number of offices for different subjects, including the Guam Visitors Bureau and so on. Next screen, and GEDA. Here's the types of statistics we have on our website on a number of subjects at bls.guam.gov. Next screen. You can apply for employment on your mobile device or website, and as well as unemployment. I encourage people to apply for whatever benefits that are available that will infuse money into the economy. Next screen. The key points for the economy is that there's the economy is based on tourism, federal expenditures, and construction. I expect construction to increase. Federal spending is likely to continue, but the amounts and what programs will be funded are unknown at this time, and key existing programs expire in December 2020. So partial tourism recovery is likely, but the pacing and timing is uncertain. It's largely dependent on the recovery from COVID and also the source tour markets. Next. That's it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Martinez, President of the Guam Contractors Association, who will provide a construction and labor update.
Hello, David John, can you hear me?
You're good. Let's go.
Oh, okay. Can I get my PowerPoint presentation on screen? Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm James Martinez of the Guam Contractors Association. I just want to give you kind of an update on our construction industry and maybe the some economic outlook in our industry in the coming year. Next slide, please. So as the Guam Contractor Association looks forward to the new year ahead, we anticipate actually more than ample opportunities for construction industry across all sectors of the industry, including the local economy. Next slide, please. Beginning with the government of Guam construction, we've got some funding already earmarked and available to begin some of these projects, which includes the Guam International Airport at $40.6 million and the Guam Solid Waste Authority at $27.6 million for a total of $68.2 million of funds already allocated for these projects. Planned projects going through 2021, which would require some kind of bond or loan financing to begin the projects, include the Guam Waterworks Authority at $134 million, Department of Education for a new school at $100 million, Department of Public Works for some road projects at $70 million, University of Guam, $20 million, Department of Land Management, $15.75 million, for a total of $340.75 million. So Government of Guam construction work on that government sector looks to be pretty promising for construction in 2021. Next slide, please. Going on to military construction, it continues to be our main economic driver in all sectors of our industry, providing more local jobs and subcontracting opportunities, especially to our smaller contractors who are working as subcontractors to the larger companies on the military installations. Next slide, please. So the military buildup is in full swing with approximately $853 million in military construction projects currently under construction, and $470.6 million is forecasted for MILCON solicitation and awards in 2021. These are all in addition to the projects that are already contracted. Right now, we've got probably close to $1 billion in backlog. And in construction speak, backlog is not necessarily a bad thing. So it gives contractors a better tool for planning in the future months and year ahead. Then comes the new the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act. Proposed is another $662.8 million in military construction projects that are planned and will continue to be a major source of opportunities and revenue for Guam construction companies and in the year 2021 and beyond. Next slide. Moving into the residential construction sector, the latest Department of Public Works Building and Construction Permits Report dated September of 2020, there are 151 permit applications for new residential construction, renovation, and extensions to residential units amounting to a value of about $6.23 million. So this is kind of good news especially for the smaller contractors who specialize in residential construction. But with these opportunities also have challenges. And the challenges for these smaller contractors is going to be the labor situation that we're currently experiencing. With the current labor situation, smaller contractors are a little gun shy to petition for additional skilled workers to work on their projects. So these contractors are usually specialized in construction projects on our smaller size. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the new NDA, 2021 NDAA provision that might provide some relief to these type of contractors. Next slide, please. Moving into the commercial construction, we saw the completion of the new Tabaki Hotel. They're now in operation, full operation, or at least in operation, maybe not full at this point. But the other major commercial construction that also Gerry had highlighted previously is the Japanese big box retailer Don Don Donkey, located at the intersection of Airport Road and Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Other commercial developments that are planned to date and have permit applications submitted, valued at $129.5 million in contract value. So commercial construction looks to be moving pretty smoothly for the next year. Next slide, please. So going into the labor situation, this is probably the one of the biggest, more of the biggest challenges that a lot of our contractors, both big and small contractors, are facing this year. While the COVID-19 really had a very little impact on our industry because we were still allowed as essential industry to continue work, with the exception of a couple lockdowns of the entire industry because of positive COVID cases in some of our worker housing and some of our contractors. Pretty much construction is continues on. And so we provided the Department of Public Health the required pandemic plan and mitigation plans to continue work, which was required in order to get going again. So our H-2B litigation is still pending in the courts. We're looking for a summary judgment, and that decision is going to come from Chief Judge Francis Tadinko Gatewood and the District Court of Guam. Currently, many, if not all, the H-2B workers are working on the military construction projects due to an NDAA provision that provided an exemption on the temporary need requirement that allows up to 4,000 H-2B visas annually. But these are only for healthcare workers and for workers working on the planned military realignment construction projects. But I think the 2021 NDAA is going to provide some relief to that. We got some good news today, and we hope the president would sign that soon so we can get that relief. Next slide, please. So going into the 2021 NDAA provision that I was talking about, this will give some relief to our smaller contractors as well as our bigger contractors by extending the exemption of the temporary need not only to the military projects that we've seen in past NDAAs, but the 2021 will provide that same exemption to civilian construction projects as well as the military projects going into fiscal year 2021. It also allows the use of skilled labor coming from the Philippines. Currently, the Philippines is not on the approved list from the Department of the Homeland Security as one of the approved lists to bring in skilled workers. But the NDAA, 2021 NDAA and the NDAA, other NDAA provisions allow the use of the Philippine skilled workers from the Philippines to come and work on Guam. Skilled labor from the Philippines is what most contractors are accustomed to and comfortable working with, and they have been for several decades now. Next slide, please. But along with the H-2B labor force that's needed to supplement our local workforce, GCA is still working on local workforce development programs. So we anticipate a higher demand in the coming years for carpenters, structural steel workers, and masons, especially once the larger military projects are underway. We have noted that electrical trade and HVAC trades are highly pursued on Guam by some of our local folks here on Guam, but that carpentry, structural steel, and masonry trades, which we call the sunshine trades, are essentially tend to be bypassed by our local workers, I guess because of the difficulty and harshness of working in the hot sun here. But those are the ones that we are currently getting most of our H-2B workers to come in to do, because we don't have that much interest in the local market to fill those positions. But they are viable positions that I think they should consider. Also, the training opportunities continue to diversify and expand on Guam, providing the means for capacity building among the trades and other professions related to the projected construction and economic growth on the island. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. You can change to the next slide, please. I already went through that. Thank you. The training opportunities with the construction of the new GSA Trades Academy. Can you find that slide? Okay, with the construction GSA Trades Academy facility in Tizon, we have expanded the capacity to train more people on Guam. The GSA Trades Academy also implemented a curriculum for construction craft laborer under the National Center for Construction Education and Research. This curriculum introduces the trainee to a variety of trades, including carpentry, masonry, ironworking, electrical, welding, heavy equipment, and cranes. And upon completion of this two-level course, the trainee will have the basic knowledge needed on any job site. The construction craft labor curriculum also covers subjects as site layout, reinforcing concrete, and electrical safety. And this would be a great way to start in pursuing our career in construction with future opportunities for growth in the specialty trades areas. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So the GCA will continue to provide a reach out, especially our students, by providing career exploratory opportunities for our students in middle and high school that showcases rewarding careers in construction. Programs like our Construction Warriors and Pizza Pop and Power Tools offer a hands-on experience with tools and equipment of the construction trades. Pizza Pop and Power Tools is a program dedicated specifically for young girls to consider exploring these career opportunities in construction. Women are fast becoming a great resource for construction trades and transportation. And I want to note that women in construction only account currently for about 9% of the total workforce. But the women's wages in construction as compared to a man of a similar trade and similar job make 98% of what a man makes, their counterpart makes, doing the same job. In comparison to nationally other industries where a woman only makes 81% of a man's salary in a similar job position category. So there's a lot of opportunities for women in construction, and we highly look forward to trying to recruit more women into the industry because there's a lot of opportunities there. So that concludes my, next slide please, that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. And if you'd like to get more information about GCA and what we do in the community, you can go to our website at guamcontractors.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, James. And I didn't thank Gerry. Thank Gerry also for his presentation earlier this morning. Our next speaker this morning is Sonny. He's chairman of the Guam Visitors Bureau. With Sonny is Gerry Perez. So Sonny will introduce Gerry after he makes a brief statement about what's going on at GVB. So next up, Sonny. Sonny, you there?
Oh, there I am. Okay, I thought can you hear me?
Sorry. Yep, we can hear you. Let's go.
Okay. Half a day and good morning. Thank you very much to the Guam Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum. Vice President of the Guam Visitors Bureau, Dr. Gerry Perez, will provide details of our industry today and going forward, but I want to take a few minutes and provide the overall direction of the Bureau that the Bureau has been on. The Bureau's board faced the following: a 2021 budget that went from a $22 million ask to less than $7 million. 2, the restrictions that come with moving from PCOR 3 to PCOR 1. And 3, and most significant, is the inability to promote Guam as a COVID-safe destination, which is still the case. We therefore have turned our focus and resources to product, safety, and solution. Product. The Bureau continues beach cleaning and trash pickup in Tumon. But with the downturn, we, along with the Department of Public Works, are taking action to hold negligent Tumon property owners accountable to keep their properties up to basic safety standards. For far too long, some of these properties have become shelters for homeless who wander the beaches and common areas of Tumon. Hopefully this issue will be resolved in time for our reopening. The Bureau also allocated attention and resources to the long overdue and much needed cleaning of the Tumon drainage system, which had been neglected for many years and the cause of annual flooding issues in the heart of Tumon. We are already seeing results of this effort. Safety. Even without tourist arrivals, it is important to the Bureau's board to keep Tumon safe. Again, we committed resources to maintain the Visitor Safety Officer program, to have some eyes in Tumon, where many still gather for exercise and relaxation. Tumon remains quite safe for residents and businesses. Solution. The most significant change at the Bureau has been turning our focus from reopening to helping find solution to curb the COVID spread and get businesses opened up again. GVB management and staff were quite involved in the rollout of the COVID tracing app and continues to be engaged in finding best new testing procedures for inbound passengers and local rapid testing options to get businesses open. Gerry will touch on this a little bit more. So if the Bureau helps to find solutions to better deal with the COVID world we live in and to get Guam to be COVID safe, then Guam Visitors Bureau can once again focus on what they do best: marketing and promoting Guam. Regarding the recent discussions on cannabis as an economic driver, I want to be clear that the Bureau is very concerned about the damage it will have on our industry and economy if cannabis is allowed to be advertised, sold, and consumed in our hotel zones, popular tourist sites, and beaches. On a very bright note, the recent reopening of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office offers much promise. We are in discussions now to have a governor-led delegation trip to Taiwan in the first quarter of 2021, and next week we will be in discussions with a new airline to begin service to Guam from Taiwan. Finally, I wish to thank Governor Lulian Guerrero, GVB Oversight Chairwoman Senator Therese Terlahi, Department of Public Health and Social Services, and all frontliners for their tireless efforts to keep Guam as safe as possible while balancing the reopening of businesses and ease up on restrictions. As excited as I am about the recent downturn in positivity rates, the reality is we are still in a pandemic. And if there is anything we have learned over the past 10 months, is that anything can change at any time. So please stay vigilant. Thank you and Merry Christmas. Next will be Vice President Dr. Gerry Perez.
Thank you very much, Sonny. I think for the next several minutes, I wanted just to give an overview on where we were in the tourism industry, where we are today, and more importantly, how we see issues coming up in the next year and beyond. So, you know, we've really come a long way in the last 55 years of our tourism industry, from welcoming just a few hundred Japanese visitors in the 1960s to last year when we had more than 1.6 million record arrival visitors. Not only have we increased the total number, but we've also become more diversified in our source markets, which are anchored by the three East Asian markets of Japan, Korea, and the Chinese markets, which form probably 85 to 90% or more of our arrivals. The significance of tourism, of course, can't be overstated. Gerry Hiles had alluded to some of it earlier, but I just want to bring a little bit of just a few nuggets to show you the significance. So the economic impact of tourism based on our tourism satellite accounting survey is $2.5 billion and $260 million in local taxes. More than 21,000 jobs are supported by the tourism industry, 80% of which were direct, 13% indirect employment, and interestingly, as much as 7% are induced. These induced jobs basically exist as a result of the tourism industry, and they may not be directly involved with tourism, but they pretty much were induced by the tourism industry activity. So the trend line of our tourism growth in recent years has really been outpacing island's average pre-COVID. Fast forward, the COVID impact. We had tons of canceled flights, and of course, government quarantine policies were instituted not only in our source markets, but also locally. So we saw a precipitous drop in monthly arrivals from our major source markets, minus 99% to be exact. And the reason for this, of course, is a lot of these markets, the consumers are concerned about getting quarantined wherever they go, number one. And number two, the governments themselves are instituting restrictions on overseas travel from their residents. And so to put this in layman's perspective, the reason we're hurting today is in the last few months, this island has lost about $200,000 per hour in tourism generated sales. Think about that. We've lost more than $200,000 per hour in tourism generated sales. And that is why the figures that you see from Gerry Hiles on unemployment and lost jobs are so significant. This graph shows you basically the drop in tourism, or in air seats right after the pandemic hit, very March and April. You can see a drop. The last 2 years have been fairly stable in terms of air seats, and in fact, it begins to have a little bit of an uptick, but all this came to crashing down starting in March and April. This is the impact on arrivals. As you can see, our trend line was really up going until it really hits, and you can see the precipitous drop starting in late January, early February, but precipitously dropping in March and April, and here's where we are to date. So if you look at the pre-COVID trend line of 8.3%, and the COVID impact of minus 85, you can see that there's an over 90% swing in our arrivals. This has impacted tourism attraction fund income that the Bureau uses to operate, market Guam, and also to pay for upgrade and recapitalization of our tourism infrastructure. So if you can see the swing, whoops, sorry, let me go back. If you can see the pre-COVID increase in tourism account TAF income, keep losing this thing, I'm sorry. And then a minus 85%. So this is the arrival. Let me see. This is a tourist. Okay. Basically, we went from an average of around $4 million per month in tourism hotel occupancy taxes to about $300,000 or $400,000 a month. So we're in a lot of hurt in terms of operating revenues to sustain our marketing efforts and to improve our tourism infrastructure. So to Sonny's point, we have refocused in the meantime our effort to try to see what we can do to help the government and the public contain the local COVID-19 virus. Um, you know, in March, April, May, and early and midsummer, our positivity rate was under 3% and was very, very encouraging, to the point where we were actively discussing a bilateral quarantine corridor or bubble between Guam and the Japan, Korean, and Taiwan markets. Obviously, these discussions were mooted by the spikes we saw in COVID-19, not only in Guam, but also in all of our source markets. We've been making fairly good progress to date on our CAR scores declining, and the administration and everybody in the community is adhering to guidance so that our COVID scores went from about 40 in mid-November to 4.6 on December 1st. And just this morning, I learned that our our CARE score was 2.6 as of yesterday. So if we maintain this trend line consistently for the next few weeks, we can begin to see some improvement in our product, in our ability to control the COVID virus, and begin to start developing green shoots of economic activity moving forward. So as Sonny mentioned earlier, GVB's resources have been focusing on assisting in the COVID-19 fight and how we can manage the problem and mitigate the crisis. And one of the issues that we came up with in terms of this COVID fight is actually organizing with the community the implementation of Guam COVID Alert app, which is a community outreach messaging thing that we also got involved with, download-a-thon and all these other issues, to the point where we're actually been recognized nationally for having the best performance in our COVID Alert apps. I know that our target was about 70%, and we only achieved so far about 30 to 34% of our target, but we got recognized because it's the best in the country in terms of communities adopting the COVID Alert systems. We're also involved very strongly in encouraging and instituting rapid testing initiatives that would help identify the COVID virus and infection so that we can contain them more properly. And as we make good progress in the trend for our CAR scores, and as we make more effort to institute rapid testing initiatives, we can begin to rekindle and sustain our economic recovery. The recovery trajectory, unfortunately, is not going to be as quick as we have experienced in the past with different events, whether typhoon, earthquake, or even SARS. A few years ago, we had a 34% drop in SARS arrivals, and it took us only 5 months to recover in a V-shaped curve. COVID-19, however, is very different because it's not just a 5-month recovery. We had a 98% decline in our arrivals, and we're going to see a very slow crawl out from where we are. It's not going to be a V-shaped kind of recovery. And the reason for that, unfortunately, is because in the lengthy duration of the COVID problem, we have seen major disruptions in the travel industry, marketing and distribution structure, in consumer behavior, and more importantly, also the supply chain adjustments internationally. I want to show this chart because it gives you an idea of where we were in 2019. This is fiscal year 2019, when we are trending up with a 1.6% arrival. And if you look at the first few months of the fiscal year, we were trending for record arrivals, and then the crash in March, where we are still today. And so based on these numbers, you can see that our arrival numbers have really plummeted. Most of these figures that you see arriving on Guam now can be attributed to business travel and more specifically military travel activity. And so that's basically what business it is that we have. In addition to that, we have more and more local residents taking advantage of staycations, as limited as they are. For the future, the GVB is basically positioning our destination resort to be more digitized, so that we can be a digitized destination that is trusted in delivering a unique visitor experience grounded in health security, hygiene, and physical safety. And as part of this effort, we've embarked on instituting actually a paperless arrival customs declaration form, so we can be as touchless and seamless as we can as we come to the airport. We are working very closely with customs at this time and our vendor, so that we're ready to go beta testing toward the end of this month for a touchless, or rather paperless, customs declaration and arrival form. So that concludes my presentation, and I hope you find some value in some of the information we provided with our chairman, Sonny. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonny and Gerry. Our next speaker is Siska Hutapea. She's the president of Cornerstone Valuation Guam, and she's going to report on what she's seen in real property and inward investment. Siska, it's all yours.
Thank you, David. Good morning and happy day, everyone. Thanks for having me. Next slide, please. So this morning, I'm gonna give an update of the 2020 Guam real estate, the COVID impact study that we did, and a couple of emerging trends in real estate nationwide as published by Urban Land Institute, and also talk about briefly about the 2021 outlook. Next slide. So 2020 Guam real estate sales volume based on the first 11 months is now at 384 million total sales, down by 12% compared to 2019. It's the lowest since 2016, where we had about 560 million. And there's a couple of things that causes it. First is the limited supply. Of course, the pandemic, and also because of the high construction costs, there's limited sales of land because people know they can't find contractor to build the land that they're going to buy. Next, please. So single family dwelling median price increased by 9% compared to last year to 325,000. Of course, you know, the past, ever since 2014, except in 2017, we've experienced annual increase between 5 to 12% annually for single family dwelling. Again, this is caused by limited supply, as I can show on the next slide, please. So Gerry and James touch bases on this construction permit, but if we look closely on the single family dwelling and just looking at the new single family dwelling, I've tracked this number, new single family dwelling building permit. We've averaged in the past 22 years, early this year, I was calculating about 295 and per year. And last year it was only at 193, and this year annualized based on 10 months. Just anecdotal, example. You know, I've been trying to build my 2 land in Chalanpago, and I talked to 4 contractors, none of them are available. And so what James Martinez shared about the 2021 NDAA for that will help, you know, local landowner to be able to build their land. So next slide, please. So I'm going to share a few of notable sales in 2020. I've shared this previously. The largest sale in 2020 is the sale of about 8 acres of land oceanfront in Tumon for 35.8 million. It was on 3 transactions. The buyer is a Taiwanese company that are planning to build high density resort and residential. The next one, the next largest sale is Agadir on the Bay, acquired by local company for 5.2 million, 61 unit, oceanfront with some commercial spaces, and they're planning to continue operating it as apartment. Next. About less than 30 acres of land in Route 15 was acquired by a non-violent contractor, and they're planning to build gated subdivision on this land. A 24-unit bungalow apartment sold for 2 million by local construction company. Next. And a non-violent military-related contractor acquired a 14-unit condo in Jigo. They acquired this for housing for their workers and executives. Tamuning warehouse was sold for 1.68 million, and the buyer is a local company that just opened a distributing company. Next. I'm gonna skip through this. Next. Next, please. A very famous local landmark, Linda's Coffee Shop, oceanfront, 2,700 square meter of land, and over nearly 5,000 square feet of buildings, sold for 1.1 million last month, and 14 units Sagana Heights apartment sold for 1.75 million by the same buyer as the Agadir on the Bay. Next, please. I want to take you through the real estate lending activity because this is very, very interesting. As of based on the 11 months transaction, the 2020 real estate lending volume is only at $400.8 million, down by about 28% compared to last year. And it's surprising because obviously interest rates are low. And I do have to say the residential lending are still very active, but the commercial lending pretty much scaled down sharply in 2020. Obviously, there's pandemic, and so you know, people are not sure what to do. They hold off on their investment decision, but one really good example is First Hawaiian Bank was lending at 173 million last year, and this year they're only at 42.7 million. There were 34 $1 million mortgages and above last year. You know, and there's like a $50 million mortgage, 26 million large mortgages last year. But this year there's only 17 mortgages at $1 million and above, and there's only like 3 that is above 2 million. So that's a little bit worrying, although I would say 2021, I'm hoping this to bounce back on the commercial sector. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, Cornerstone Valuation completed a COVID-19 impact study. What we did is we finalized our November database, and we compared the January to November of 19 to January to November 2020. And on the condominium sector, it's down, the sales volume is down by over 1/3, by 36.4%. Single family dwelling is pretty much stable, only down by -2.7%. And on the land, it's down by 11%. On overall transaction, is down by 9.7%. Next slide, please. So on median prices, we mentioned about single family dwelling, that's up by nearly 9%. The condominium median price is down by nearly 11%. Although I do have to say that the decrease in median price is more of the selection of the condominium units sold, and not necessarily that the price went down. So is the active listing on MLS, which shows the supply. All over the board, new listing are down. Single family dwelling is down by more than 16%, and land is down by more than 18%. Next. We did this Guam real estate investment survey in October with 57 industry leaders on Guam from all over the segment of the industry. And they almost unanimously say that the Guam tourism industry will take over 2 years to recover. Next. And the economy is going to take 2 to 3 years to recover to the way it was before COVID-19. Next. When we did the survey in April, that was the beginning of the pandemic, and in October we're way into it, and 49% stated that the real estate investment in Guam is less attractive. Next. Lastly, if you're making a real estate investment decision right now, has it been infected by COVID-19? Most of them say yes, nearly 80%. Next. So I want to share a little bit of what emerging trends. This is issued by Urban Land Institute. They do an annual study every October. I was also in San Diego last month, and I met with a couple of my colleagues from real estate in California. And many of them, because of the working from home, they let their leases of their commercial buildings to just expired. Because they don't see the need for home, and they would use like the co-working spaces if they have to meet. And so, dealing with certain uncertainties is kind of the theme of what, the next years is going to be. Working from home. The old adage of location on real estate is now replaced with location, and safety. How safe is your building? The air conditioning system, the filtration system. The affordable housing crisis is likely to explode without intervention. This is not typical on Guam. This is happening all over the mainland. The trend of open air, drive-through, even on Guam, restaurant that has the drive-through are able to survive and do similar, if not just slightly lower than their previous year. The other thing that happened in the mainland too is the shift from major city to suburban. And the Midwest migration is happening in the mainland. I don't see that happening in Guam. We still like Tamuning. It's still the most favorite location for single family dwelling. But those are some of the emerging trends that we're watching, and its relevancy to Guam. And to wrap up, I know I only have 10 minutes to wrap up. Next slide, please. The 2021 outlook. I took this picture on my favorite place to watch sunset in Guam, Tagachang Beach. When I'm thinking of how are we going to do in 2021 is, like a good appraiser, I take inventory of what we have right now. Reality of the matter is, like Gerry already discussed, the tourism arrival is down by 85%. And that's, $200,000 per hour loss in our economy. Yes, we do have the PUA right now that is, kind of prolonging our, economy. But that's going to expire by the end of the year. I know there's stimulus package, second stimulus package, but that's not going to get us through all the way to 2021. We do need tourism to work again, and we do need to diversify our economy, which Joe and Frank is going to talk about right after this. And so that's the reality of the matter. There's going to be some distressed sales, not as much as it was in 2001, 2003, but there will be some distressed sales happening towards the end of 2021. However, you know, James mentioned this too. The military buildup is, you know, our saving grace. And there are a lot of military buildup related investment that are coming to our island. I showed you some example of them, you know, acquiring the apartments and other property. And so, you know, we have that still to hang our hat on. I think 2021 is a really good time to like start a new business. Think about our, to plan we must, and there's opportunity to be had in 2021. Last slide. If you need statistics, more statistic, you can go to our website. But thank you for having me, and I hope what I shared is worth your valuable time. Thank you.
Great information, Siska. If I could ask you to stay on and have your other two tri-chairs join you. At this point, I'd like to ask Frank Campillo and Joe Cruz to join Siska and lay out for you, I think, a very exciting initiative that Chamber and GEDA is working on, again, with the Women's Chamber and the government as a whole, to see what opportunities we have for Guam to go beyond just tourism. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Frank, and you can, Frank, if you can grab your team and make your presentation.
Thank you, David, and welcome to this morning's presentation. A crisis creates an opportunity. That was the objective of the Guam Chamber of Commerce think tank, to develop ideas for the economic diversification and shape the future of our island's economy post-COVID. The goals included the following: identify a potential new industry with a short, mid-term, and long-term objective, identify and address any barriers to that industry, demonstrate the economic benefit to the island, and provide a suggested action plan for implementation. We have presented the plan to the Governor of Guam and GEDA, and now we'll be working hand in hand with government agencies for the implementation of the plan. A structure has been put in place whereby GEDA, the Chamber of Commerce, and other stakeholders will lead and work on getting these ideas further developed and implemented. The co-chair of the committee, Joe Cruz, will now start the briefing.
Thanks, Frank. So the Chamber in July of this year, because of a lot of the reasons and the facts that both Gerry and James have shared earlier, saw a need to think out of the box. So we established a think tank that consisted of several local community members, namely Mr. Joe Arnett of Deloitte & Touche, Dr. Gerry Perez of Guam Visitors Bureau, Christine Balletto of Docomo, Ernie Galito of Atkins Scroll, Mr. Frank Campillo of SelectCare, and Mr. Nate Timilo of Docomo. The committee established, basically took a flatline approach, looking at all existing laws that would enable economic activity outside of tourism. And in that process, we identified 3 initiatives that are currently allowed for in local law. In addition, we identified current economic generators that can be enhanced, that we could develop further by tweaking some of the elements of the plan, of the economic generation that it causes. And then lastly, we looked at some long-term opportunities based on our current location and our status as a U.S. territory. We established 10 initiatives. The first 3 initiatives, starting with the alternative dispute resolution, is intended to create a arbitration and mediation capability on Guam to attract corporates or corporations that in lieu of legal approaches to settling matters, can use either the mediation or arbitration approach, which is currently allowed for in Guam law. Of course, some barriers to entry related to that have been the lack of active promotion, in addition to just the local infrastructure needing to be established, like the legal process. Those have since been identified and resolved in terms of establishing a process to allow for this. The attraction and the opportunity provided for in the ADR is to generate a different kind of traveler, mainly business travelers, more sophisticated travelers that will use Guam as a location to mediate any issues associated with any practices or business events that they're dealing with. The second initiative was the captive insurance initiative. Again, this is currently authorized by law. And several years ago, Guam had entered into this marketplace to generate captive insurance interest on Guam, but have not been successful. This law currently is available and is authorized, allows for this initiative to occur. And our solution to provide for this economic activity in Guam is to further refine some of the regulations that apply to this to enhance or attract our potential captive insurance players to Guam. We've identified certain procedures that could be enhanced within the licensing process to be able to execute some of these captive insurance opportunities. The third initiative, again, which is currently provided for in Guam law, is the Guam Trust Law. And in the Guam Trust Law, it allows for companies to transfer assets to Guam and manage their assets out of Guam. Again, there's tax benefits to this, and it's just a matter of executing a plan in coordination with GEDA to revitalize and promote this program. And then looking at the fourth initiative, which is a construction and labor initiative, these again are current economic generators that, as you've heard from prior presenters, are challenged. So on the construction side, as you can see, there's billions of dollars of projects that are currently on hold, mainly due to the lack of labor. So this initiative looked at some of the causes of these labor challenges and have developed different ideas to provide this labor resource. Of course, the ultimate solution is to get more H-2B here because it's more economical and more reasonable from an execution standpoint. However, there are current resources that we have not looked at. For example, we have a tourism market, as Gerry mentioned, that's adversely affected by the current COVID situation. Due to this, there's 33,000 unemployed or furloughed tourism-related workers from what we gathered in our assessment. These workers can be repurposed or retrained through entities like the Guam Trades Academy or the Guam Community College to allow for a construction and labor pool that doesn't exist. In addition, there's over 300,000 construction workers that are currently furloughed as well in the United States due to the current pandemic. You know, looking at the numbers that we have currently for the H2 workers, there's a large labor pool there that we haven't tapped. There are labor brokers in the States that have a workforce that can mobilize. So it's a matter of determining how we can use this labor in an economical and practical way to support this large labor demand for construction. The other economic generator, which is our fifth initiative, that currently is happening on Guam that can be further enhanced, is the ship repair industry. Because of Guam's secure location as a military port, as compared to the Asian ports where historically many of the US vessels that operated in this region have maintained their vessels at, Guam provides for a safe and secure location for these ships to come into and be repaired. The current Asia market is limited because many of these ships require what they call original equipment manufacturer and or technical representatives that aren't able to travel into Asia because of all the pandemic and COVID quarantine mandates that are in place there as well. Whereas in Guam, these types of professionals are considered as critical service workers and are able to enter into Guam to support maintenance and repair of vessels. Yeah, so this industry alone can generate significant activity here, mainly because of our safe and secure position as a military port. So the committee looked at these initiatives, this initiative as an opportunity to increase our economic benefits from the ship repair industry. The sixth initiative that we looked at as a diversification of our current activity is the Safe Haven Port Initiative. And what this initiative entails is the ability for Guam to host U.S. military vessels and their crew on Guam in a safe and secured manner. This activity currently is happening. However, all ships' crews are kept on base, mainly due to the concern of exposing the crew members to COVID, which would result in a vessel being disabled because their crew is ill, much like the Theodore Roosevelt that we saw earlier this year. So currently, the U.S. military, when they have ships come into Guam, keep their crew members on base and generate activities for them to live on base. The Safe Haven Port would enable initiative would enable these crew members to exit the base under a controlled basis, maintained in a bubble from the time they leave the ship into a local hotel where they could be housed and entertained by establishing a restricted and controlled environment so that any exposure to COVID is mitigated or limited, which would therefore impact the ability for the crew members to return to the ship. This initiative currently is being discussed between the U.S. Navy as well as the Guam Hotel Restaurant Association and the Guam Chamber of Commerce. And hopefully soon we'll probably have a couple of ships that will come in and we'll try to do a pilot project in terms of moving these crew members from the ship to the hotels, and to start getting our hotels, which are currently vacated due to the COVID impact, as Gerry described earlier, to be in business and to sustain a business presence while we're coping with the downturn in the tourism economy. The next several initiatives, which are more of our out-of-the-box approach to maximize Guam's location in the region, are creative initiatives that we believe are achievable, and it's just a function of getting our thoughts and our resources together and coming up with a plan to attract opportunities that are in these markets. And with that, I'll turn it over to Frank Campillo, who will cover those initiatives.
Thank you, Joe. The next initiative basically is the relocation of high wealth individuals and businesses from Asia to Guam. And Ernie Galito was the leader of this particular initiative and did an incredible job with that. The basis of this initiative is realizing that businesses operating in Guam have a distinct advantage over other regions and locations nearby. We are a US-based economy with the US dollar. We have a strong US judicial system, the US banking regulations, and the proximity to other regional economic hubs. The basis of these opportunities include the fact that Beijing imposed the Hong Kong national security law, which has threatened Hong Kong, the advancements that they had made towards Taiwan, the established business infrastructure that we have in the island, the fact that we're a duty-free port, the trade benefits offered by the have-not create of the tariff schedules of the United States and the generalized systems of preferences, the tax rebates and qualified investment certificates that can be issued by GEDA, and the Guam EB-5 program. The required actions to make this initiative a fruition requires that we promote Guam as a business hub on Asia, introduce, highlight the strength of the Guam EB-5 program in Hong Kong, encourage target groups to participate and introduce in introductory sections, engage and communicate with target groups by sustaining value-added content, drive impressive and credible Guam EB-5 programs recognitions. That was the 7th initiative. And again, this is a little longer term. The 8th initiative, also thinking out of the box, is bringing the pharmaceutical industry remanufacturing to relocate to the US territories, including Guam. There are initiatives in Congress realizing the current crisis and realizing that the United States does not manufacture critical drugs that are important for any critical crisis. Research estimates that the global pharmaceutical industry was worth over $1.57 trillion US by 2023. And this actually was before COVID. food COVID and all the investment that has been made into the pharmaceutical and drug manufacturing industry, we believe that this has increased to almost $3 trillion. The North America pharmaceutical industry is retaining about 45.3% of that market. The Asia Pacific pharmaceutical industry is at about 25% and continue to grow at a dramatic pace. They bring entrepreneurial advancements to consumers here in North America, which otherwise is known as the Big China ad goals, include the reduce of dependency on China for critical medications, increase U.S. manufacture of prescription drugs, and the opportunity is based on the fact that the growing pharmaceutical industry in Asia, in countries such as Taiwan, the Philippines, Japan, Korea, is nearby. There are about $25 billion currently being traded in pharmaceuticals in these countries that I just mentioned. Guam can bridge Asian companies to become the bridge from Asia to North America. The Made in America objective for drugs also would be an advantage for those companies to relocate to Guam. And we're looking at the University of Guam to become a scientific research and development facility to allow companies to come and help with the institution. The required actions are to promote Guam as an ideal location to conduct the production and packaging of into the U.S. market, seek the opportunities from pharmaceutical companies from Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan, and mirror the Puerto Rico pharmaceutical industry model. That's basically our 8 initiative. The 9 initiative is something that began a while ago, but is still a long-term initiative, which is the Silicon Valley Initiative. That is based on information technology. We have the ideal environment to attract technology-related companies based on the fact that we're the westernmost U.S. territory. We have close proximity to Asia, and we have an abundance of subterranean internet cable connections. The opportunities include the Silicon Valley Initiative that was started in 2016 with the 2 main objectives of growing and developing local talent and build a skilled workforce, explore opportunities and develop demand for technical investments, do a data warehousing, become a secondary safety office for companies in Asia. The Tiyan High School Partner in Excellent Telecommunications Program is a demonstration of what can be done. GCC and UOG partnership with the 2+2 degree program in computer science provides us with an improved opportunity. What do we require to do? We're required to invest in local labor force, workforce development and in technology, and promote partners in excellence with the 2+2 program. The 10 initiative, and being a long term, but something that today we see happening all over the globe, is the satellite launching. In April of 2019, Virgin Orbit chose Guam as its newest launch site. And Guam also has been chosen as one of the locations for now the National Space Force Defense Program. Emerging global markets for satellite launching include and the demand for high-speed mobile communications, high-definition TV conversion, and remote sensing. The opportunity for Guam is the proximity to the equator, which is an important, attractive launch destination. Established telecommunication companies with high network, which includes the GTA, Docomo, Pacific, and IT&E. And as you can see, companies like SpaceX are launching more and more satellites and are launching, and space travel is something that is the future for humankind. The required actions include revisiting the current Guam regulations that prohibit hauling, transporting, and warehousing of satellite launching equipment and assets. Also, develop a marketing plan for incentives programs to attract companies to Guam as a future launch destination. And with that, we pass it to the next presenter. I believe David John is going to be Melanie Mendiola with the other initiative for this program.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mel if you could join us.
Yes, I'm here. Hafa Day, and thank you very much for having me. This latest initiative, or the last that we're discussing, and I'd like to thank you for giving me the time to discuss, is something that the governor is very passionate about, and that's the agriculture and aquaculture industry. You can go to the next slide already. So the governor recognized the need for economic diversification well before the COVID pandemic. And she, when meeting with the economic diversification think tank with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, she asked that, that this continue to be a focal point of economic diversification. Some of the progress that was made in 2019, farmers began some institutional sales with the Department of Education. They hadn't sold to DOE for quite some time, and that was revived last year. This year, we had public health purchase over 2,000 bags of assorted produce for Manumku programs. Multiple farm organizations responded to the COVID crisis, wherein hotels had to halt their orders of produce. And so what these farm organizations did was they offered a curbside pickup of local produce around the island, and this helped farmers recover from the slowdown in sales from hotels. Very recently, the Guam Economic Development Authority received a notice of further consideration for a $1.2 million grant to build and improve on village market sites. So it's to build a new site in Sinahanya and to improve on 2 sites in Mendiola and the village of Agate. And just this week, this picture was taken this week, the governor visited the farmers co-op in Dededo, who opened, they got the central market open. And so with the central market, farmers can drop off their produce instead of the farmer going direct to a business or to a customer. Farmers could drop off their produce. The co-op manages the sales, the marketing, etc. And farmers can do what they do best, which is specialize in growing our food. You can go to the next slide, please. But the work is, that's just a toe dip in the water. The governor is very interested in continuing to expand these industries, and in partnership with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, she's very excited to see the future of these industries. Some of the plans for 2021 include expanding farmers' exemptions, and this is mainly to ease the way by which farmers do business, to lower the barriers as well as lower the cost to entry. And so extending the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program to include agriculture and aquaculture. So the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program has been a highly successful program in industries such as telecommunications and construction, which results in a lower cost of labor to companies. And so this is something that the governor would like to see extended to agriculture and aquaculture, as labor tends to be one of the highest line items in their expense side of the house. Additionally, we are looking to launch an aquaculture training program in conjunction with the University of Guam, and provide more support through initiatives which scale agriculture and aquaculture production. So like many of the other initiatives discussed earlier today, this is not a short road to economic diversification. This is one of the initiatives that is a longer term initiative, but with baby steps. And you know, you know, for a little farm pun for you, we've started to plant the seeds and we're starting to cultivate. And so hopefully we begin to enjoy the fruits of our labor and harvest very, very soon. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. If I could ask our all the speakers to enable their cameras and their voice to get unmuted, so we can ask the group to answer questions. Also, just if you know, we can do this as we do it, like we're in the room together. I'll ask some individuals questions, and then others will be more of just a blanket question. If I can get the feedback of all of you, or any of you that want to add some insight, that would be great. As I'm pulling you guys all back on, a little house cleaning items. The video, audio, and the presentation will all be available by the end of the day, or by Monday for certain, on the Chamber website, along with the questions that we couldn't get to. First question out of the gate, directed towards Gerry, but any of you maybe can add to this. Obviously, the reduction in hours, reduction in jobs has reduced the withholding taxes coming into the local government. On the flip side of it, the pool of money has come in, along with the federal monies come in from the federal government. How much of this, the two kind of offset each other from a cash standpoint for the government's tax revenue? And I guess cut to the chase. Where do you see us as far as the government going next year, Gerry, as far as cash positions? And also maybe Gerry, if you can chime in from a GVB that information you might have.
Well, for this year, the federal funds have substantially, but not entirely, offset the reduction in the tourist arrivals revenue flow. So the fiscal year ended with a surplus, but that was due to the tourism being very robust at the beginning of the year, in the combination with a more conservative budget and substantial federal funds. Next year, the situation really depends on how fast the tourism recovers and how much additional stimulus is authorized. It's under discussion in Congress right now, but we won't know the amounts and the timing in the programs that'll be subsidized until it happens.
Great, thanks, Gerry. Any of our other panelists want to add to that comment?
Well, as far as revenues go, Dave, I know that just from a tourist attraction fund income, we were trending 25 million north of that. And then all of a sudden we were faced with like 4, if we're lucky, 5 million. So that's a big drop in, obviously, in hotel occupancy taxes. That's a reflection of what Gerry was speaking to in terms of people laid out of work and no arrivals coming from our markets. So we're probably limping along on the occupancy from military and business travelers and some limited local homestays in the hotels.
So from that end of it, Joe, your program from getting the safe harbor piece in place could be a big game changer for the first half of the year. If I could ask Catherine Castro to join us really quickly here. She has some exciting news. She's been working on something for a year. And as long as we have so many members here together, I think it'd be a great thing for Catherine she's glowing, I can see it. If you can announce what you heard this morning.
We're very excited. Thank you very much, David. And for all of the panelists, you've done a great job. And we're getting all kinds of feedback, by the way, about this seminar, this webinar. But I just wanted to let everybody know that the Chamber is part of AmChams of the Pacific, right? The Asia Pacific. And it's a network of American Chambers of Commerce from all over the Indo-Pacific region and Oceania. And so the group has decided just the other day that they will register their organization here on Guam and hold their bank account here. They're moving from Hong Kong to Guam. So we're very excited about this. Obviously, these are baby steps, but it's working towards all of these initiatives and all of the hard work that we've been doing. So kudos to our Guam team for making it very enticing. And so we're going to be in the next couple of months going through the registration process and stuff like that. So we're very excited for good things to come. So we just have to keep working at it and keep positive. Thank you.
And kudos to you, Catherine. Great work.
Thank you.
Great job. Moving on in questions, I think this one's for James, but GSWA is court mandated to start and finish their next cell. How about pushing for waste to energy instead of wasting such valuable property? Has there been movement on that or any discussion on that?
We haven't discussed that much, at least on the board level. Yeah, those are mandated, and we just know that there's funding to actually expand the new cells, but going in that direction makes more sense. that has not really been in full discussion mode, at least on our board level.
Okay. Thanks, James. One other question for you here, I guess. And this actually, if maybe chime in more generically than this too, as far as the new administration. But the question came in: will the new administration have a negative effect on military projects? And maybe if I could open that up to any of the rest of you, as far as your own industries, do you see anything positive or negative as far as the new administration? And the policies that we're expecting out of them. So first, James, if you could answer it regarding the military projects, and then I'll open it up to our other members here this morning that maybe can shed some light in either government affairs, Gerry, and or industries specific for the rest of you.
Yeah, one thing that we know is going to impact the construction industry here is actually the new president-elect Joe Biden is pro-union. So I think that there's going to be a lot of movement towards project labor agreements that's going to be on federal projects. We're probably need to prepare for that. We are an affiliate chapter of a national organization called the Associated Builders and Contractors. So we have a government affairs arm that'll be looking into that. And once we get more information on that possible movement, like I said, they're even putting the unions as one of their advisors, I guess, for labor. And we're concerned that the president would put together some kind of a project labor agreement on all the federal projects in the future. But we'll see when he becomes sworn into office in January.
Some of the Guam projects were put on hold temporarily for border wall funding. I think that there's a possibility that those would get released.
Anything else from our other presenters here? Okay, this next one's kind of for all of you. How will the economy change as a result of the pandemic? How will labor be sourced anew in view of the unemployment rates now? And the built-in assumption seems to be that is how we are going to go back to where we were. How will the economy actually change, I guess, is the bottom line from your views. Maybe I just go left to right. Frank, where do you see things changing from a macro level for maybe your industry and things that you're involved with? And then I'll go to Siska and Joe.
Well, we will be doing more of this, and this means this type of interactions, knowing that we can do this now from our home offices. For instance, we implemented open enrollments via Zoom since about March, and we have been able to actually through this period gain some accounts and do full open enrollment briefings. It will basically motivate companies to move more into electronic commerce and create tools that will enable individuals to do more of the internet economic commerce, and that will be the biggest accelerator to include, for instance, in our industry, telemedicine in continental US and across the world has increased by a significant double rates, and that is because of the pandemic, and that is something that will continue to increase rapidly, and that's what the biggest change that we see, the fact that the increase in the use of tools like this to be able to do work and provide services to customers via internet services. So the telecommunications industry is going to grow by leaps and bounds because more bandwidth is going to be needed.
Good points, Frank. Thank you. Siska, where do you see things?
Yes, so like Frank said, crisis creates opportunity, and like you said too, we here on Guam are resilient, and that's kind of what I see. Yes, 2021 will be challenging, but there's opportunity for in the residential sector for people to create a new system or new construction methodology that can cut cost and obviously cut the time to complete a house. There's opportunity to streamline the permitting process. That has been, you know, the bottleneck of things. And so hopefully with this crisis, we will have an opportunity, the government will have an opportunity to streamline this building permit, occupancy permit process. It is ridiculous to have 2 to 4 months for just to get a building permit for a small house. And so opportunities abound. I agree, it will be challenging, but we will get through it, is what I see in 2021. Thanks.
Thanks, Siska. So I'm going to jump over you for a second to have Mel respond to what Siska just laid out there. We all, I mean, when you talk to anybody who's trying to do a project right now, you get feedback, and it's not good, about the government not being responsive to just simple things to get projects going. I mean, we can't do much about getting tourists back until we get a healthy island and a vaccines in place. But it just kills me when you see people that are wanting to do things. You have companies that want to make investments, and they're not getting anywhere because our process within the government is just, it's one sticky point after another. And so Mel, through GEDA, is trying to implement and using the program that we're doing for diversification of industries, and using this as a point to help push it, but trying to put a concierge service in place. Maybe Mel, you could talk a little bit to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what GEDA has long, I mean, this is not a new issue, I think, and even prior to the pandemic, I think what the pandemic did for us is it exacerbated the problem, because you went from the government of Guam being kind of technologically a little bit behind, right, a little challenged, to being absolutely just outdated, right, and the ability to adapt is something that it needs to happen quickly. And so on a couple fronts, the first is from a technology point of view, there has been funding identified through the Department of Homeland Security, in addition to additional funding, I'm not sure if it's, I believe it's through CARE funding, for work on automating the licensing and registration and permitting process. And so getting off the ground in the near term is something the administration is very, very committed and looking to do. But in the meantime, we can't always rely on, while technical things are being sorted out, GEDA at the direction of our board, and really happy that we have David John as our board chair and Siska as one of our board members and our real property chair, committee chair, who pushed this internally with our agency to serve as the point person for basically projects, to getting projects off the ground. And so what GEDA has done is we've permanently detailed a member of the GEDA team over to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. And she's currently assisting Director Shimizu with just a backlog of work that Director Shimizu has. But the long-term intent of this is that she will be there internally to be able to gather information and move around and be agile with regard to requests having to do with the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Additionally, what we're working on internally here at GEDA, again, it is as Chairman John had mentioned, like a concierge service, wherein led by our business development department and First Lady Joanne Camacho, who's also our deputy administrator, can work with businesses who are experiencing challenges getting through this process, that they can reach out to GEDA, and GEDA can serve as a middleman. So right now what we're doing is we're working with legal to develop some documentations where, similar to like a registered agent, where instead, when you sign off and you have a registered agent, like a CPA or something, going and doing your bidding at DRT, you can have a similar arrangement with GEDA, where they can go and talk to different government agencies on your behalf. And so yeah, that's in summary what we're working on.
Thanks, Mel. Gerry, I'm actually, sorry, Joe, I'm gonna get back to you in a second. I'm trying to go horn here, but I'm trying to connect things too. As far as streamlining processes, I know Gerry's got another program that he's trying to get a grant from the federal government to streamline the data, because not only do we have pinch points on getting new projects through, but when we're trying to analyze opportunities and seeing how things fit, Gerry's got all kinds of great data, but sometimes getting it out there is there's some sticking points there too. So I know Gerry's got a project that he's working on. Do you want to talk anything about that, Gerry, as far as what would come if we could get that grant in place?
Sure. We've been pushing for years to automate the customs data collection so that shippers could submit their shipping information electronically. The Bureau of Statistics and Plans has applied for a grant to start that process, and they've received it from Department of Interior. So I'm hoping that that moves forward. Also, automation in terms of providing statistical information. Additional automation at Department of Revenue and Tax would be a key priority in terms of getting more statistical information and a variety of other purposes. Some of the forms are already automated online. They have a website, but to continue that automation process. So in the future, I'm seeing in terms of work already, this pandemic has people were working a little bit remotely and doing things electronically, but it's really pushed and accelerated and I think made a permanent change in online work. In terms of opportunities, if we're sitting in the office and doing everything online, I think that's also going to create more opportunities for a desire to get out and travel and other social interaction. So it might even kind of go the other direction, that people will be looking for. You don't get your social interaction talking to people at the bank and the grocery store. You're going to want to get out and see people in other venues.
Thanks, Gerry. Okay, so Joe, where do you see things going as far as permanent changes to our economy from employment, whatever else you see in your industries that you're involved with? I know you've got many.
Well, I think going back to what Melanie said, I think based on our current economic conditions, we need to adapt. So while we've been a very tourism-centric, travel-centric economy, obviously with the global impact that COVID has had on that market, there are current economic generators that have a demand. So I think we need to follow the demand. For example, construction. I mean, just looking at the dollars that Gerry summarized of projects that are not executed, that are pending, and those that are in the permitting process. I mean, there's a real demand there, and there's dollars there. I mean, the NDA has provided money to execute these projects. So our challenge, of course, is the labor pool. So if we can find a solution to the labor pool, there's real dollars there that can be spent. So if we get over, just focus on finding a workforce solution, and I think you can see those dollars penetrate our local economy. So that's on the construction side. I think we need to follow the demand that's existing. It's real. It's there. On the military side, I mean, current Asia situation because of COVID eliminates any options the military had previously on sending their ships to ports. Guam is in Asia. We're US. We're safe and secure. I think we need to capitalize on that demand. Again, there's a real demand there. There's ships in this region because of what's happening in the region that are wanting a place to go to. And if we can provide a place where they can have R&R as well as do maintenance, there's a demand there. So I think we need to adapt to that. And until we get the travel industry back online, these are a real economic activity that's currently in place. And we just need to provide the resources. And really the main resource is labor. And we just need to focus on finding a solution to that, whether we bring in US labor. I mean, if H-2Bs become more easy to process because of the new NDAA, then we should really see what we need to do to streamline that process and get the workers into Guam. I mean, there's dollars there to be spent, and that's what we need to chase. And that's real money. And in the next 24 months, I think that's something that we should try to get spent on island. So I think we just need to focus on the labor issue. That's the biggest challenge we have in getting these dollars spent here.
Great, thanks, Joe. To that, I mean, I think the person who's best to follow up on that one, James, you're most involved with labor within the group here. What initiatives, I know you spoke a little bit about it, but if you could maybe expand on that regarding what initiatives you're working with within the labor pools as far as getting more local people involved with the areas that we are actually doing commerce in.
Well, and you know, that's the goal of the association, is we want to get more local people involved in the economy by hiring them and putting them into jobs that currently have, you know, funding to do. And I agree with Joe that there's going to be an opportunity there to hire more local people, especially with the number that were laid off in the tourism industry. But I need to caution you also that, you know, once we go that process and we start to hire these folks from the tourism industry, when tourism gets back, then we've got another set of problems, and that's trying to restaff the tourism industry. So we don't want to cannibalize any industry here, but it certainly lends the opportunity to hire more locals, especially in this situation now, and have them retrain and retool them, so to speak, to work in construction. But it's going to be a kind of a moving target, but the opportunities are there, definitely, and the money is there, absolutely, especially with the military projects and hopefully with the local government and residential construction that are starting to, you know, to be on the rise. Labor has always been the big challenge. It's also a challenge in the States, but not as bad because they still have a severe shortage of construction workers in the States, despite some of them that have laid off. Just a matter of them traveling from state to state to look at those opportunities. We're on Guam, we're right here in the middle of the Western Pacific Ocean, then it's a little more difficult to bring in workers, especially from stateside, and the cost to bring them here to Guam is, you know, not economical. And so one of the better ways is, of course, is our H-2B visa process that we could utilize, but we don't want that, and we don't want to have a 100% dependency on that as well. So we need to look at diversifying and looking more into our local labor market and retrain and retool our local people to get into these jobs. Again, we've always overlooked women as a resource for construction because it's not a traditional job that they would get into. So we need to attract more women into the industry and, you know, raise that. You know, we've got a lot of women right now nationally. We'd like to, you know, raise that to 15% by the end of 2021 and beyond that. Right now, on a national level, you know, women make close to with their male counterparts doing the same type of work in construction, whereas other industries are making like 81% of what a man makes. So these are the things that we want to attract more women, recruit more women, and of course, we want to also continue our outreach with our students, and starting in the middle school. I think it's important that we start there at that early age to get them to, you know, consider construction. College is not for everybody, and when you graduate, you know, only 20% or 30% of the jobs available would be requiring a 4-year college degree or a post-secondary degree, but there's 70% of the jobs, like construction and other trades, that are certainly going to be available by the time they graduate from high school and from college.
Thanks, James. We have a couple minutes left here. I'm going to turn the question from something that James just brought up and pivot it to Gerry and Sonny, if you could answer that. But to you know, James's point, and, you know, maybe something we've been talking about. Sorry, my dogs are barking. Something we've talked about as a group over the years is that, you know, to really grow the economy, we need to get more of our local workforce in. We obviously need some H2 workers right now with the big buildup going, but the more we can get locally our own workers involved with construction, we keep more money on island and it circulates within the economy. But by doing that, to James's point, we could be taking more workers away from the tourism area, which kind of goes back to one of the discussions we've had over the years about minimum wage. Obviously, a minimum wage needs to be set for someone who doesn't have any skill. But I think sometimes along the way we keep workers in that group and don't elevate them. So what are we doing on the tourism side of things to train employees so that we can do more with less people and make the economy more successful overall? What are we doing from a training standpoint, from initiatives, from automation and such, if any?
Sonny, you want to answer? You
No,
want me to?
I was gonna say that's probably more a GHRA question, but that was gonna be my point. But Gerry, if you had, and I think just from this overall experience, everyone's tightened up, and so everyone's gonna run a lot more efficient, and the smarter will survive. And I think so. I think we're going in that direction. Gerry, if you
Yeah, let me just say, probably in terms of the tourism industry, that we're really entering into a new and different paradigm. Historically, tourism is volume driven, density dependent for scalable pricing on the one hand, and so a lot of the institutional structure and distribution structure of tourism is supporting this high volume, density driven model. What's happened with pandemic is that on the other side, there's a new theme developing that would speak to less concentration of people, less hospitality, and less touchy-feeling kinds of interaction, less labor-intensive activity, gravitating more to a touchless experience and going through the airport, for example, without any contacts of anything. So those two opposite ends of the tourism industry are going to influence the way we service the industry and the way we prepare people for taking care of our, of our tourists. And so there is opportunity to retool into a more digitized, driven kind of a destination where health, safety, and hygiene are paramount. That means that there's going to be a reshifting of labor requirements in the tourism industry that would be actually to the benefit of more employment in other areas. We still need manpower in the tourism industry, but it's not going to be the typical like one-on-one service. There's going to be probably less of that because of the nature of the business. So that's kind of how I see it.
And also the overall model is being thrown out the window with the JTBs and the HISs. Online booking is and direct booking is going to go way up. They're closing a lot of the shops that the consumer typically went to get information. So that's going to be a big change. I'm hopeful too that with the topsy-turvy of tourism and what we're used to, that we might be able to, this is an opportunity for us to perhaps get a slot out of Haneda. And finally, a point I want to make is that the GVB's role is expanded to also promoting economic development. And so I can, instead of operating in silos, GVB, GEDA, Airport Authority, I can see us moving into a lot more collaboration like we're doing now to address the pandemic. So I think that's going to go on further. And finally, again, congratulations to the Guam Chamber for securing the Hong Kong AmCham office here. I think that's going to be a great opportunities for us. And thank you to the Chamber and David for this opportunity.
Great. So we're 3 minutes past our hour, so we'll wrap up. But I wanted to first of all thank Catherine and her team for putting this together. I know there's a lot of legwork involved with it. And congratulate you again to echo Sonny's sentiment on your announcement this morning. To the panelists, like usual, I think you hit it out of the ballpark. Great job. There was some great information, good dialogue between. I think we could do this all morning. But we're not. So thank you for your time and your energy and your thoughts. And I'm going to be, we'll be sharing some more questions with you that we didn't get to ask you. If you could take some time and send it back to Chamber, or we could publish them. I said at the end of the day, that's not fair to you guys. We'll push for Monday, but if you could get some answers to the other questions that are there, that would be great. But I'd like to wrap things up and thank everybody for logging on this morning and taking time to be with us. So thanks everybody.
Your dogs are barking to
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. taken over. Okay.